Looks like you are joining us on Periscope. Best way to treat a patient after a headshot. Here's a better one. Should LA armed citizens be treated in treating tension pneumothorax the needles?
So the tension pneumothorax is honestly a very simple procedure. I've seen that many times in my career, and it's really easy to treat, but that depends on what your local laws are and what your level of training is. Now, nobody's ever been prosecuted in a Good Samaritan situation doing something like that. I don't recommend you just shoving needles into people, but if you train and you actually learn how to do a needle thoracostomy where you put a needle in the chest and decompress the chest, honestly, if you're going to save somebody's life, take a chance and save somebody's life, because if they come to me dead, they're dead. If they're mostly dead, then I can at least fix them. But again, if you are comfortable doing the procedure, you've practiced it, and you can do it comfortably, have at it.
All right, two questions. Number one, the truth about using a tampon to actually plug a gunshot wound. Let's address that one first.
So the truth is, it might work. It might work. But remember how large tampons are and how small bullet wounds may be. The first reality is, I don't know that you're going to get it in the hole. Number one, the hole may be too small. So you're probably better off using gauze, and depending what finger you have, what size hole is, if you can't use this finger, you can use this finger and you can pack it in the hole. So regular gauze, which you can pick up right here, and we just picked these up at the local supermarket today, whatever company you use. Regular gauze works just great, so it shouldn't be an issue. And a tampon might work, but it might not.
Someone asked about shock. Person's in shock. What is shock, and some of the acidic stuff you talked to us about earlier, and how to treat for shock?
So what is shock? Shock is when the blood supply can no longer supply oxygen or energy to vital organs, and they have to go on their backup power system, which is anaerobic respiration, which again doesn't use oxygen. It's less efficient, and it produces lactic acid. We all know what our muscles feel like when we're running. They get acidic and they cause a lot of discomfort in that tissue. Because the body doesn't work well at a lower pH, certain things like your heart stop beating. So shock, we always talk about it, but it's kind of this, who knows what it really is. It's when you no longer have the blood supply to support your vital organs. So you want to minimize heat loss, you want to minimize blood loss, and minimize exertion when you're waiting for EMS to arrive. And there's certain ways to actually reverse that. Now, one of the ways you can reverse shock or decrease the rate at which shock happens is by, obviously everybody knows stopping the bleeding, but while you're trying to wait for EMS to arrive, you want to take some of the demand out and you want to put some more supply back in. So a lot of you guys, this is probably the first time you're hearing about it, but it's the mechanical blood volumizer. It is a tourniquet that you put on like a set of pantyhose, and it has a silicone ring in the center. It is the modern day replacement for mast pants, if any of you have heard of them. They were the old military anti-shock trousers. This is a silicone ring inside this sock, and you put it on your leg, and it squeezes the blood out of your legs or arms into your core. What does that do? Well, it takes the demand of feeding your arms or your legs, wherever you put this on, out of the equation, so your demand is less, and the blood that's sitting in there, typically 250 cc's of whole blood in each arm and 500 cc's of whole blood in each leg, goes into the core. So you could actually put in, if you were shot in the chest or in the abdomen and bleeding there, you can actually put 1.5 liters of your own type and cross-matched whole blood back into the body. It also decreases that from the demand. But the problem is, once you put this on, it cuts off the circulation and the nerves, so very quickly those limbs are unusable. You won't be able to walk or use your arms, but you have a 2-hour tourniquet time.
Tell me about hollow points, what you've seen in terms of gunshot wounds in the ER. Hollow points, are they significantly more effective or hype?
Hollow points, when they work, cause more tissue damage, no questions asked. The best obvious thing is the higher the velocity, causes tumbling and a greater wounding pattern. When you look at a full metal jacket, it'll typically go through more things, it'll penetrate deeper, it can go across tissue planes. All I can tell you is if you have a bullet hole in one area, the bullet may be in a totally different area. And whether it's a hollow point or not, every shot is different. But consistently, I would say a good hollow point causes more damage than a full metal jacket. Full metal jacket will penetrate through many layers, and then eventually when it slows down, it'll go track along a tissue plane. When you look at the hollow points that open, they tear tissue and cause more damage locally. But the faster they move, the more damage.
All right, folks, you're here with Dr. Dan. Of course, Dr. Dan works with SWAT Fuel and is an emergency room medical engineer, basically puts people back together. And throw your questions out. Slug or shot for shotgun defense?
I like to mix it up between buck, slug, buck, slug. The reason for that is you're always going to pick the wrong round first. So if you need a slug for the first one, I'm sure that you're going to have buck first. But it gives you the option in between. I will tell you that buck and slug will cause a ton of damage, and buck usually works pretty well first, so I'll go buck, slug, buck, slug.
Someone asked, is the arm or leg not a good aiming area? And then also another person wants to know what the best everyday carry tourniquet is.
Sure. Well, as far as extremities, if that's all you have, if say you have somebody who is partially concealed and all you can see is their shoulder or their leg, and you need to take a defensive shot in order to neutralize a suspect, well, you take it. But the three classic areas are much more likely to cause a kill wound. And again, negotiations have clearly failed at this point, so we're at the point where we're choosing to use deadly force. We don't shoot to wound. It's an unfortunate thing, but we have to, in this case, take a life to save a life. And I would recommend that you do it as quickly and as humanely as possible, and also effectively. So I would go for either a CNS shot, a center mass shot, and you just keep shooting until they drop. Or if you're going to do a pelvic girdle, make sure it counts and you're putting lead down range into the pelvic girdle. Now, the second question was tourniquets. The most common tourniquet out there is the cat tourniquet. I certainly carry some of these and they're great, but I'll be honest with you, I have moved to the rats because of how compact it is. It's also as effective from most of the studies that I've seen. A lot of these studies aren't published, but they're out there, and between the military and law enforcement, pig studies, etc., a lot of animal studies, this is about as effective, if not more effective. That data isn't in yet. So we don't know which is the best as far as effectiveness, but I will tell you, a stick with a piece of nylon webbing, if you know how to use it, as long as a tourniquet stops the bleeding, that's a great tourniquet, as long as you can use it. I carry this because I can fit 2 of these in my BDU pocket real easy. And if I'm carrying a gun or if I'm carrying a knife or if I'm choosing to carry concealed, I choose to survive. So I'm carrying 2 of these.
Someone asked what they can pack in their car as a basic kit. You want to grab that other little kit and show them what we built?
All right, so real simple. If you start out with a commercial kit, they're usually fine, but they don't have the real bleeding issues covered. You're going to have a lot of scrapes and cuts and whatnot that you need to deal with tactically that these cover. But what I do is I just take tourniquets and I add them to this. I'll add some gauze into the kit, and I'll add some Coban or honeycomb dressing, or you can use an ace wrap, what have you. But I carry a couple of things of gauze in here to stuff multiple wounds, and I carry enough of the honeycomb bandage to really to do this. The other thing is these kits will come typically with 1 pair of gloves. Make sure you have a couple of pairs of gloves in there. Remember, you're going to be all amped up from this. The first thing you're going to do is put on a set of gloves if you're treating somebody you don't know and you're going to tear them. So have a few sets of gloves in there so that you're not too worried about rendering aid by catching something. It would be really sad to watch somebody die just because you couldn't find a pair of gloves.
All right, Dr. Dan, before we wrap, tell them where they can find a little bit more about you and maybe your SWAT Fuel company.
Sure. Well, SWAT Fuel is a line of nutritional supplements that was originally developed for military and law enforcement, and we opened it up to the general public in 2013 in January. We're big in Southern California, and we're moving across the country. But if you take your shooting seriously, if you take survival seriously, what we did is really create a line of products that are there to optimize human performance. It's not a magic pill, but it will help you get that extra edge that you need. And the key thing is, as opposed to a lot of other energy supplements, SWAT Fuel, our 9mm plus P endurance formula, was formulated in conjunction with shooters. So we had Navy SEALs, Recon Marines, Air Force PJs, SWAT cops from around the country, who are all my friends and peers that I set all this stuff out to. And they were my review group. So they told me when it was good and when it wasn't good. And in the end, after about 5 years, we got the formulas nailed down. They're based on really simple, clean energy and give you a little extra mental focus. The most important thing and what sets it apart is that when you're doing weapons manipulation, you're not overstimulated to the point where you can't do weapons manipulation. It actually enhances your shooting. And for most people, it's really smooth. That being said, there are some people it won't work for, but I will tell you our vitamins will work for everyone. And they're a great basis for your nutritional program. So,
hey folks, just to close this up, a lot of Q&A today and did some good stuff. If you want more details about some of these videos that are going to be coming out with Dr. Dan, you'll see those soon for those that are Warrior Society members on AmericanWarriorSociety.com. Of course, I'm going to share the replay of this on Facebook like always, so you can go to my Periscope profile, find my broadcast, and you can look at this one. And please, if you like this kind of stuff and want more of these technical gear, medical related, videos, you can actually share that that feed itself, and I'll see those shares, and I'll know that's what you want more of. Okay, we'll also put it on YouTube eventually when I upload it, so you can watch it there. Folks, Mike Seaclander with the American Warrior Society and Shooting Performance. Dr. Dan, we're going to be signing off.